All right, let's call the meeting to order at 7:05. And Paul, you'll take a roll here. We have myself, Eddie Miners, Trevina, and Chelsea, members of the commission present.
That's correct.
Absent is Ron Johnson and Richard Bedford and Paul Booth.
Correct.
Okay. The minutes from the last meeting, Paul, I just read the second page again. I thought it was on the second page. Is everybody okay with the minutes? I found a grammar error someplace in there. Must be on the first page because I just read the second page and I can't find it again.
Ed, what we could do is go ahead and pass the minutes as amended, and I'll get together with you after we can find the typo and get it corrected.
That'll be fine. Yeah, it's just grammar. I mean, the figures are right and all that stuff. There's nothing to be concerned about.
Gotcha.
Okay, somebody want to move to accept the minutes? Eddie Miners moves, Trevina seconds. Any discussion on the minutes? All in favor indicate by saying aye. Minutes are approved as amended. Anybody have any changes to the agenda? Any additions or deletions, anything necessary to add to the agenda? Okay. That being the case, I will proceed with my chairman's report. I attended a food distribution program up at the church on where the Crystal Ballroom was, right across the street. Is that Seabourn Drive?
Sebring.
Sebring Drive, yeah.
Sebring.
I attended a food distribution process up there, and that went quite well, although it was packed. There were tons of people grabbing boxes of food. There's one Friday at 2:00, and you just stay in your car and they will pass you. This is just vegetables only. The previous one was milk, cheese, and fresh vegetables and fruit. Trying to think. Oh, well, I mentioned before we started, for those that weren't here, the Civil Service Commission is having our meeting in council chambers the first Wednesday of the month. So some people are utilizing council chambers, although Diana says that's not the case with the council themselves. I think that's all I have to report. Council liaison, Diana?
There is a tax incentive review commission meeting coming up on July 9th. That's where we review the TIFs and other grant monies that flow through the county. And we also give them a report on our own incentives, in community incentives as well. But council is, the last big thing we did was pass the tax budget, which is to tell the county auditor what your expected revenue is. We don't deal with the budget side. And that the purpose of that is for the auditor to certify the collection of taxes and certify the rates. So that's the first step in the budgeting process, and we'll go on from there. That's pretty much what's been going on.
Okay. And the school tax increase failed. That bill failed, right? But the highway one, or the Port Authority, or whichever you want to call it, that passed.
The transportation did, yeah.
Yeah, for 25 years we will have the increased tax. Okay, thank you, Council Lady Irby. Where'd my agenda go? I wrote on the back of it. Okay. Paul, you're up.
Thank you, Ed. I just wanted to give everybody in your packet was a written report that I submitted. There's a couple things I want to highlight in that. Before I do that, I should note that Ed mentioned that the city building's opening kind of on a phased basis, on a limited basis. We are open on an appointment basis now for people seeking permits, other types of things. They can come to the city building. The tax office has actually opened, but they are now located at the senior center. We've done this as a way to help provide people more opportunity for social distancing. We've been able to move our people out and set up the senior center as a temporary tax office. So people who have questions or wish to pay their taxes can do that by going to the senior center versus coming into the city building. We're trying to limit the number of people in the city building at any one time. So as you mentioned earlier, City Council is still not having their meetings in the city building yet. So we're trying to phase that in little bit by little bit. As you can imagine, quite a bit of work has been done. When you come in, it will be a much different experience coming to the city building. You will actually, there's now an intercom system set up at the front door where you will come, let the receptionist know what the purpose of your meeting is, who you're wishing to meet with. They will buzz you in, and then there are actually designated waiting areas for people to wait until the person that they're scheduled to meet with can come up and take them to one of the conference rooms that has been sanitized and cleaned and ready for visitors at that point. So we've actually done quite a bit of work in the city building, but just so you know, that's a little different experience when you come in starting now. The other thing is last week we had 4 of our businesses were actually, we set up a visit with Congressman Steve Chabot. And I know that that's a little troublesome to some because we don't like to necessarily do anything in an election year. But as you all know, Congressman Chabot sits on the Small Business Committee. The Small Business Committee handles a number of programs, including the Payroll Protection Program. So the opportunity to have him meet with several of our businesses one-on-one was important. We set up appointments with a number. He did have time to meet with everybody, but we did set up appointments with 4 of our companies, and we tried to give him a variety of those companies to meet with. So he met with Richard and Brandy Bedford over at Park Place. He met with Evans Nwankwo at Megan Construction, Don Schwartzman at Enriching Spaces, and then the management team at Cincinnati Testing Labs. So that kind of gave him a broad range of people who had participated in the payroll protection program, but gave him a broad range of businesses from, several hundred people at Cincinnati Testing Labs, to less than a dozen people who would work at Park Place or at Enriching Spaces. So it gave him a variety. It gave him minority-owned businesses, women-owned businesses, and then Cincinnati Testing Labs is actually an employee-owned company, an ESOP. So that's even a different experience there. It was a very helpful meeting. We learned a little bit about some of the payroll protection program. There is an anticipated second phase to that program. I encourage you to watch the SBA website, also the Economic Development Administration website to gain more details as that becomes available. He actually did help a couple of our companies submit applications for a new round of funding through those programs. And I learned today that one of them actually secured $100,000 in federal funds to help offset some of their expenses. So the visits paid had a return on the investment time we had. Certainly, we got that as a part of that process. In addition, City Council passed the incentives that we discussed at our last meeting. They passed incentives for both OKL Engineering and Kid Coffee. You might remember that the 2 projects involved vacant buildings, one in the Chappelle area over off of Sebring, another one in our Northland area. converting those properties to productive assets in the community. The projects, there's information on those. And again, we discussed these at the last one. But basically, the city is putting $60,000 into the two projects, and we're leveraging over probably around $3.5 million in investment from the two companies. Now, I should say that, again, these are still kind of in the working stages. We still have some things to work through. The building over on Northland in particular raises some challenges because of the condition of the building, but we're hopeful we can pull these deals together. These were important first steps to get these companies to move along with their expansion. So we feel good about it. OKL is a longtime member of our business community. We want to keep them here. And then, of course, we have, the new business in terms of Kid Coffee, and we're hopeful that they're going to be able to move forward with their project. The last thing I wanted to give you an update on was the library project. As many of you might recall, the library had committed to building a next generation facility to replace the Parkdale branch. This would be located in the same area as the Parkdale branch. It could be in the old swim club property that the city used to own. You might recall that we have a 5-acre site that's directly catty-corner to the existing Parkdale branch. This is a project that's in their master plan. The goal is to start construction in 2022. What we are, as you might recall from our previous meetings, we're looking at possible uses for the old library building that could include a business assistance center. We could partner with a number of regional entities that could be anyone from HCDC to Jobs Ohio to Ready to the African American Chamber of Commerce. There's a number of potential partners in that project. We're still down the road a little bit from getting into those partnerships, but if indeed we come into ownership of the old Parkdale Library building, we envision that as being kind of a business assistance job center for this entire area. So this could be a really important project for our community. I think it could go a long way towards even bringing more activity to the Northland corridor, and we're very, very interested in trying to put this together. I think it's coming together. As you can imagine, you probably have seen the stories about the state budget situation. There is, I don't think there's any question that the library is going to get their dollars for the project from the state of Ohio, but they are concerned about the timing of those dollars. Will they see some of those dollars pushed back into the next fiscal year? There's a number of different questions that could happen. So we're looking at all those issues.
Hold on a second. Hold on, excuse me, Paul. I got Ron Johnson on the line. He says he can't get into Zoom. Do you have the link to get in on it, Ron? And do you get any connection at all that says press open to enter Zoom or nothing like that? Waiting on host. Chip, can you hear me?
I think Tony's got the.
Tony.
Tony, yeah, Tony. If you can hear us, if you can go ahead and let Ron Johnson into the meeting, that would be good. Ron's one of our commissioners.
The message he's getting is waiting on host. We have the gentleman from Waycross going to work on this for you, Ron. I would try to log back in again rather than wait. Click on that link, and then you should come up with three dialog boxes, I think. Click to open and join meeting, then click to allow audio and click to allow camera. I think that's the process. Oh, you're trying to get in through the phone. Oh, okay, open Zoom meeting. The meeting host will let you in soon. Okay. Host disables participant screen share. I don't know if Tony can hear me or not. And Paul, I did something And all I have you is in the right-hand corner and a big Zoom logo in the middle. I don't know what I clicked while I was
Okay.
talking to Ron.
Why don't we do this very quickly? Could we maybe ask everybody just to check in and make sure we haven't lost anybody? I see Eddie. Eddie, you're still here with us?
Eddie Miners?
Yes.
See,
Yes,
I
I'm here.
lost all the participants for some reason.
I'm
Chelsea,
still here.
are you with us? Okay, Chelsea, are you with us?
Yes, I'm on. You can't see me?
Now I can
Okay,
see
thank-
you, but not Paul.
Okay, you know what
Trevino,
I think it may be, Ed? Go to your, go to that, but there's a button and you'll see some dots on top, like Paul. And then you need to make it so you see all of us at the same time.
Uh,
Because I think you're only seeing one person that talks at a time versus all of us in a group.
oh, exit minimized zone.
There you go.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Oh, you're on?
good
Ron?
enough.
Okay, we don't see you though.
We
Hey,
see,
Ron,
we
it's
see him.
now.
We see him, Ed.
It's still connecting, he says.
He's coming.
He's there.
Okay,
Mhm.
All right.
All right, Ron, we are, oh, there you
Okay,
are.
hang up,
Okay.
Ed. Hang up.
Ron, we are at Paul's, the director's comments, and he is reviewing the memorandum he sent to all of us, and he was talking about the enterprise zones and that.
Okay.
So, Paul, you want to continue?
yeah, that really, Ron, I just kind of summarized what was in my report, so there's nothing new there.
Okay.
If you have any questions on that, you can contact me tomorrow, any day this week, and we can go over it if you've got any questions.
Okay.
And that would conclude my director's report.
Okay. Unfinished business, the strategic plan. We said we were postponing that for a while last meeting. What's the status?
That's correct. I just wanted to make sure, since we had some folks join us, that I don't know if everybody was on that call at the last meeting, but we are going to take that 5-year strategic plan we were looking at, and I think we're actually going to push that process back into 2021. And the reason for that is I think we need to get a better handle on exactly where we're going to be with some of these projects. The library project in particular could dramatically change our plans. I think, as Councilor Clark knows, we've taken a good look at what that Parkdale branch could be. I think there could be a tremendous potential for us to change that into a business center, a business assistance center, some type of a job center that would help service businesses not only in Forest Park, but this entire northern loop, I-275 loop. So until we get a better handle on A, those projects, and also B, just where we're going to be at budget-wise, I think it's better for us to take a look at that process in the first quarter of next year. Now, what I'm going to do is put together a revised timetable, and we may try to advance that project a little more quickly than we were going to this year, and see if we can get that done. But for our next meeting, I'm going to try to put together a revised timetable for the strategic plan for you to review.
Okay, very good. Item B under unfinished business, the Waycross Reserve Residential Development. That's by, oh, I'm sorry, Chelsea, did you want to
It's okay.
interject something?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask a couple questions. Well, maybe not ask, but maybe make a comment, and then you tell me what sense it may or may not make. But Mr. Brim, because it's going to be such a hefty undertaking, it's going to require a lot of assistance from, I think, across the board in terms of our commissions, our volunteers, outside folks in business communities. Would it make sense to at least begin fielding interest for folks that can be and serve on certain types of commissions or elements of that work, so that we can at least kind of have a team. If we can have the team in place, so to speak, for each one of these pockets, whether it's economic or, residential and community engagement, whatever those look like, if we could kind of have a few people in place already, would that help us to expedite our process in its totality?
No, Councilor Clark, I think that's an excellent suggestion. And I think that's something I can incorporate into that proposal that I bring to everybody at the next EDC meeting. And we can go ahead and put that together. I think that's a great idea. Then we can kind of hit the ground running in January in the first quarter, rather than, take a month or two to get ourselves, put together. We can get everybody together and on board and be ready to start the work then the first of the year.
I think the businesses are also very, they're listening very closely as well, and we kind of have them in a standstill, so to speak. So we can really reach out to certain people that I think otherwise wouldn't necessarily want to be, as ingrained or part of this work too. So thank you.
No, I think that's an excellent suggestion.
I'm glad you interrupted there, Chelsea, because I had a question that came back into my mind. Under unfinished business, I guess it would go. Back some months ago, it started before the job fair, and then you had a table at the job fair for small business, African American businesses to try to get into Forest Park. And
for minority
you were gonna meet
businesses.
with Richard on Sundays at Park Place. And I asked you and you said you would call me. I assume because of COVID, you guys haven't met at all?
We have not. So when we met, we had 17 folks come, which was wonderful. And then no, we have not met. Now, some of those people I've emailed them, and we've had some, kind of sidebar conversations, so to speak. And I've just been working with the African American chambers, not as much as I would have. I anticipated that work to be greater, but it's a little slower than I anticipated. But there's a lot of work coming when it comes to, the process is much more fluid and developing with Black Achievers. Black Achievers Professional Network has really solidified themselves as a top tier African American professional organization in Greater Cincinnati. And that's pretty much where their sweet spot is, and not necessarily, Cincinnati proper. And they have thousands of members, and they're doing Trevina, you already know, they do a really great job. So we are working on developing something for us this fall. Not exactly sure what that'll look like with all this pandemic, but we are working on something that'll be kind of like a reentry workshop for businesses. And then also I'm in talks with Mortar. So Mortar, Cincinnati, I'm an alumni of there, or an alum rather, and looking at how we can tap into, their phenomenal, infrastructure when it comes to startups. And this is just for clarification, this is for minority businesses, traditionally underserved economic folks, like not just Blacks, but Hispanics as well. I'll be, working with, I think it's, who is it, Diana, Miss Herbie? I can't think of the group I'm talking about, the Hispanic group I can't think of their name right now, but Links or Leas. Anyway, so I'll be starting with their chamber. They have a Hispanic chamber that's got some good, gotten good contacts for.
There are other minority groups in this city, the Nepalese community, the recent African community. I don't know if we need.
Is huge.
Yeah, it's an opportunity to reach out to those other minority community or immigrant communities as well.
Absolutely right. We don't want it to just be, it's not just for African Americans. When I had that,
are you also looking at? Are you also looking? Are you also looking at women's groups?
Yeah, I was just about to
Women
say
and-
that includes, so that work includes minorities,
Yeah.
and that includes women, and it includes veterans.
Councilor Clark, one person we may want to touch base with is Nancy Goins at the Forest Park Chamber. Nancy's actually been very involved with a number of different women-owned business professionals groups in the community. I know she did a lot of work with Crew when she was with the engineering firm here in town. So she might be a good person to bring to this process too.
Absolutely, I will definitely contact her. I forgot this isn't our regular meeting. I just can't be all personal.
I got you.
Chelsea, I have a question for you. When you said there were 17 attendees, were you talking about the job fair?
No, I got less. I only got one person sign up at the job fair, but at Park Place, there were 17 people that came.
Oh, so you did have a meeting with Richard at Park Place.
And it was in March. I think it was, I'm
Probably
sorry.
March.
It was like the first part of March. It was right before everything.
Right. Well, because
That's what I recall, Chelsea. I thought it was right before everything closed down.
Right, it was.
and I know in
Are you trying to get on
February, I
this
think
call?
that was our last meeting.
Richard says that he can't get on this call.
Tony, could you hear that Richard Bedford cannot get on the call?
I did. He is not in the waiting room.
They're not in the waiting room.
Chelsea, tell Richard he's not in the waiting room. I don't know what that means, but
Sir?
It's where I see people to let them in.
Okay, I will. Okay, bye.
Chelsea, Tony can't
Yes.
see him trying to get in.
All right, he asked me to text. I can't text it. I will do my, now, you know, he has the computer store now. That's all I'm gonna say. He better.
Chelsea, if you can't, for some reason, if Richard can't get on, the same offer I made to Ron, if he wants to give me a call tomorrow sometime, I should be in the office most of the day, and we can go over this information and answer any questions you might have.
You can
Oh, okay,
also
thank you.
call in on the phone number, just for voice number.
Okay. I text them the meeting ID and the password. Sometimes that's easier since I'm texting it, and then I'll text them the phone number. I've never even called in on a phone number. It's the 646, correct?
Tony, can you hear Chelsea?
I'm sorry, Tony,
Yes.
it's the 646-876 phone call-in. Is that right?
I did not get the number, but I believe that
for
Paul
New
called
York?
that number earlier.
Yeah, that's the one I used.
The New York-
Chelsea was,
Okay.
yeah, New York, since it was Eastern time, that's what I used.
All right, I sent it.
Good enough.
All right, Chelsea, back to our discussion we were having. If you have another meeting at Richard's place, how about giving me a call, please? I'd like to
Yes,
attend.
sir. Yes, sir.
Okay,
It
thank
won't
you.
be at Richard's place. The next one will be at La Fiesta, but yes, sir.
Oh, La Fiesta, okay. All right.
Spreading
Excuse me.
We were
What are the
going,
qualifications, Chelsea? Do you have
I'm
to be
sorry?
local? Is that not my business is located in Dayton? Is it only for local minority-owned business or
Well,
any?
if you live here, then it would count.
Okay.
You living here and then and being local. What we're trying to do is get, we really are sharing so much space with our neighborhoods. I mean, it's really sharing, but it's bleeding so much. So of course we want to focus on our Forest Park folks, but it is going to encompass a lot of the other minority pockets that are in greater Cincinnati that are really they lack access to resources. Cause like I said, they really centralize a lot of those resources in Cincinnati. But yes, you would qualify.
Okay.
That sounds formal. You would qualify.
Qualify,
It's
yay.
really, this is a really formal thing, you know.
All right, back to the agenda. Paul, you were going to discuss Waycross Reserve Residential Development, which is Miranda Homes, right?
It's Miranda Homes. It's also, I think, one other developer is involved with that project. Those of you might recall, we had been looking at a residential development along Waycross Road for a number of months now. Planning Commission did approve a project that involves the construction of 16 single-family homes along Waycross. The nice thing about these homes, if you're in the market, is that they're going to probably start around $275,000. Nice homes, but all of them will back up to Winton Woods Park, which is kind of a unique attribute to have. So one of the things you might recall, we've looked at a number of different plans for this piece of ground over the years, anything from, a half dozen homes to 30 homes or 40 homes. We ultimately, I think Planning Commission wanted to make this kind of a signature project. So we ended up with this 16 home, but again, all of these lots kind of backing up to the green space area that's behind them, that's part of Winton Woods. So it's a really nice project. That project was kicked off, and my understanding is they've already sold 6 or 7 of those lots. So they're going fast, and I think it's a good sign for us. That coupled with the project I'm going to talk about next, I think it signals, we've got some good signals that the community is moving forward in the right direction, particularly along that Winton Road corridor.
And they were talking about okaying 16 plots back there?
It's 15 or 16. I have to check with Chris. I think it might be 15, but I have to check with him.
And already 6 or 7 of them are taken already?
That's correct.
Wow, that's
They
good.
are. I went through them. I went to 2 of the models.
Go ahead, Kelsey.
You might remember that this is part of the CRA, Community Redevelopment Area, and the purpose was to spur this kind of development. So, and what spurs it is that it has abatements attached to the purchases. So these people will have some abatement of their taxes for a number of years.
I think it's a 15-year period, if I remember right, Diana.
I think so.
It is.
Yeah.
Okay, they're trying to connect to Richard right now. I think he's on. Richard, can you hear us? He's in the middle of my screen connecting.
There he is.
Can you hear us, Richard? Turn your audio on, Richard. Richard, can you hear us?
I think he
He's
froze.
having connectivity issues. He's in a moving vehicle.
I see him, but I can't hear him.
Richard, we see you.
Hello, Richard. All right, we're going to move on and hope that he can hear us at least.
Okay.
Go ahead, Paul. You want to move on to new business?
Absolutely. The final item on the agenda tonight, other than discussion, is we have a redevelopment incentive proposal. I'm very pleased with this project. This is something we've been working on for quite some time. The project is a first step. You might recall that we have been working with the owners of Forest Park Square, which is where the Kroger is located. We've been working with them for quite some time on the potential redevelopment of that shopping center. And I'm happy to report tonight that they have reached an agreement in principle with the main anchor tenant, that's Kroger. to secure a 10-year lease with Kroger with options for future years. On top of that, this is a very important project for us. As you all know, retention of Kroger and getting some improvements to that store were very important. There's going to be a combination of investments as a part of that. You will see some minor modifications to the exterior of the building. They're going to do a pop-out to handle the click list service. They're going to start that service, the Forest Park location. The other components of this will be approximately $2.5 million in improvements to the building. Most of those will be interior improvements, but you will see some minor exterior modifications. This is going to be a nice project. I have to give Phillips Edison credit. They have reached part of what they're putting into this deal is basically not there is no kind of rent increase for Kroger as a result of this deal. Now, they did ask us for some assistance in terms of pulling the project together. But I have to say, Phillips Edison was actually very helpful in terms of helping us put together this deal. And they recognize that given the experience that we're all going under right now with changes in our revenue picture due to the ongoing COVID health crisis, they recognize we didn't have, you might recall when we talked about this project initially, we were talking about some substantial incentive dollars for this project. We're actually going to be we're recommending a modest $10,000 redevelopment grant to facilitate this project. So again, if you look at it in terms of what the city's investment is compared to the return, we're leveraging, anywhere between $2.5 and $3 million in private investment with our $10,000 to create this project. So we're very thrilled with it. I think we're on the right track. And what we're looking for tonight from the EDC is just a resolution in support of the staff recommendation to move forward with this incentive.
Okay, and Paul, before we move to do that, could you remind us, is there an additional building being added on for a new business in regard to that project at Kroger's? Is there an additional floor space?
No, not there is going to be a bump out associated with the Kroger space. Basically, they're going to move out. My understanding is, if you're familiar with the building, there's an awning there now. They're going to move some of that space out and bump that out, just a small portion of it to accommodate the click list function. But that's it. This is the Kroger project. We're still working with Phillips Edison on a redevelopment of the rest of the property. But obviously, this is kind of the linchpin towards moving forward with any redevelopment of that shopping center.
Okay, thank you. If someone would like to move to support the suggestion of the Economic Development Director that we give, is it approximately or not to exceed what, $10,000, Paul?
It's $10,000 redevelopment grant.
Okay.
It's set.
Would someone want to move and second, and then we can have additional discussion if needed?
Trevina Adams will move to have that grant accepted.
Okay, it's been moved.
Yes.
Ed Miners will second. Do we have anyone who wants to discuss anything regarding this Kroger project and the $10,000 development assistance that we were going to move for?
I may have missed it, but when are we expecting this to take place? Are we looking at this? Is this a 6-month deal? Is this something that's going to happen within the next 3 months? I'm sorry, I missed the time frame if you did offer one.
I don't know if we have a timetable yet on construction. I can tell you they have submitted plans to our building department already for review. So I would anticipate that you'll start seeing some of the improvements before the end of the year.
Thank you.
I do have one just little concern, so to speak. I don't have an issue with the amount of the grant at all. That's not the issue. But what I do have a issue with is that for the past few years, we've had significant there's been an uptick in and theft and kind of misbehavior, and even just the look of the place. But I know the look isn't in question right now. But in terms of the security measures, they had, I think, a really good security police department that was going really well, and I think it worked. I think it was worth the investment. And then they went to an outside, like a third party outfit that was not kind of shaggy. It didn't work very well. It even looked kind of badly in terms of how their security folks looked. And now they're not, and I just, if there are, if you're going to do these enhancements to the property, I think that they should also really consider and put the investment into making sure that more things are secured and that it doesn't get run over.
We can share that.
Yeah,
I could-
I like to kind of piggyback off of that. Chelsea, thank you so much for bringing that to light. I agree. I shop at that Kroger at times. Oftentimes I don't because of the element around the store, especially in the evening. It can be a bit much. I know when the kids were leaving school after school, kids are going to be kids, but there was a lack of supervision, if you may say. But I do agree with you, Chelsea. There are some concerns. Theft has gone up in that store, and there are some concerns about just being able to go to the store and not have to deal with panhandling and those kind of things. So, and that does change the whole, aesthetic. It just changes everything where you can go down the road maybe and not have those same issues and kind of shop in peace, or because theft is an issue at that particular store, the prices go up. So for the some of the same items, I might be paying, 5 cents more or whatnot. So that is definitely something I think that if you can, Paul, when you have discussions with them, bring that up in an effort to just kind of do something different or to make it a better experience.
If I could
Sure.
ask a question at this point, Trevina and Chelsea, I'm on the Community on Patrol, the COPS program here at Forest Park. Up until COVID, we had been meeting every month for the last, for years. And I've been there for about 2 years now. And we get a report of all the crime in the city every month. They send us actually it's the mayor's report. I guess it's Chief Arms presents to the mayor a list of crimes that have happened the last month. And we get a copy of that. And I know that Myers, as well as Kroger's, has their own internal security and someone on site, or at least they did. When there is a theft at Kroger, do they handle it internally, or do they call Forest Park Police? Because I don't see that many items on the monthly report.
And that's so here's there's 2 layers to it. The one layer you have where there's a known, there's a known thief, and they actually report it to our department, as, hey, we've caught somebody, we've got them, and they've stolen and this and that, and we're reporting and filing a report. The second problem is that internally through Kroger, there are dollars that they are losing around certain times, especially like, when the kids get out of school and stuff, that they've seen those numbers go down. So we would have to get that data from them. But, last year when I inquired about it, the information that I received was that they were losing, upwards of, it was really a bizarre number. It was like $50,000 in, it's certain items too. It's like snack stuff and things like that. That's a serious problem. And if you have things like that going, continuing, and there's no halt or, mitigating factors to decrease that behavior, then you have a nice situation where they can say, well, you know what, maybe we'll just close that store because you've got Coleraine that's now big and beautiful, and you've got Woodlawn that's, nicer. So I just don't want to have us, in the position of having to
for that to be a consideration, nor do I feel like it's as safe as it can be.
It has happened. I know of, I mean, when you think about Wanna Hills, for instance, when that whole store closed down, but I'm not familiar or I'm not privy to any information regarding thefts and how they are reported. But I can tell you a personal experience. Literally standing in the checkout line, a gentleman walked out of the store with like a Keurig and like maybe a air fryer, I think it was. And I told the lady, I said, he just walked out of the store. And she's like, well, we didn't see him. There's nothing I can do about it. And I was totally floored. I was like, okay. But literally that man walked out of the store with an air fryer and a Keurig. So for me, as someone that shops at Kroger, and all of us, we're paying for that Keurig and that air fryer that he walked out of the store with. And not that it doesn't happen. I know they have loss prevention, I know they have all of that. But I'm just thinking about in regards to if we're going to do something to the facade of Kroger to make it more aesthetically pleasing, and I also want to do something that will make my shopping experience equally as pleasing. Because, like Chelsea has said, I've seen stores shut down. In Kroger, this Kroger in Forest Park is a very active Kroger. It's a very busy Kroger, but so was the one in Wanna Hills, and they closed it. They had some, although our issues probably are not to that extent, but they closed it. And
I don't think we even want to hint about closing the Kroger.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's not a leak when this is what's happening. This is not secret information. It's what's happening. And even aside from all that, we have a duty to making sure that, as much as possible, we can make sure that our business community reflects and adheres to some standards that we have just as a community. And those are some standards. And if we're going to give you $10,000, which we don't have much of, that's really valuable to us, then there's nothing wrong, in my opinion, with saying, hey, could we get some assurances on the back end? Let's make sure that this experience is worth it, because I know, just like Trevina said, there are people that seriously aren't even going there because of it. I've seen people steal in front of me, and it's an uncomfortable experience, and I'd rather go someplace else.
Well, let me interject something here. Paul can probably answer this better than me, but we had similar issues like this on Northland with two of the bars over there for years. And it really isn't something that the commission can really do much about, other than present it to council or the police department and say, hey, we've heard there's a lot of theft over there. Can you guys talk with the owners about it and find out if that's true? I'm going to see the cops liaison officer on Friday, and I will ask her about the reports we get and why I don't see that many reports on Kroger crime on there, and see what she tells me.
Okay.
And Trevina, maybe she'll have an answer for you and me, because I know that Myers calls Fairfield police every time there's a theft up there and they catch somebody and they detain them until the police come. I don't know what the process is at Kroger's. Go ahead, Paul.
And you might, and I think everybody raises some really good points here, and I think this is information we can share. I do want to make it clear, the incentive is actually for the owner of the shopping center, which is Phillips Edison. So they would be the ones that receive the grant. It would help leverage their investment in the project. I do have to say, I think with Kroger's investment, and Kroger will probably be investing $1.5 million of their own dollars, in excess of $1.5 million of their own dollars in the project. I think it's a demonstration of their commitment to the community, but I do think you raised some good points, and I think what we probably need to do next, our step typically deals with the physical project. I think what our next step is going to be is, once we get the physical project in place, once the improvements are being made, then we need to sit down probably with Ed said the liaison from the police department, probably even Bill himself, our police chief, Bill Arns, sit down with the management team at Kroger and go over some of these issues. And Councilor Clark, you may want to be involved in those discussions as well. But that would be my thought is, this piece is typically purely the construction and renovation piece. That's typically what we're working on. I do think you're raising some very good points. And if we're making these improvements, we want to make those improvements, sure that those improvements translate into improvements in the, like Trevina said, the customer experience. So I think we need to maybe sit down, and there's a second step to this process that's above and beyond the incentive and the construction and the development piece. And that's this entire piece that we're talking about here. And I think it's really important to involve our police people in that process as well, and approach the management team at Kroger and get that done. If that's the direction everybody wants to head, we'll make sure that that happens.
Well, I will talk to the liaison on Friday. Also, I'm sure that I have seen, at least in the evenings, Forest Park Police working overtime hours, I guess, up there at Kroger's. And I think they have their own security as well. Is anyone?
I've not. I was just in there, and I've not seen their own security, and I inquired about it. So I think the name of the lady is Trisha.
I've seen Kroger security. I have not seen the police department man the store. However, I have seen security there. Few, far and in between, very few times. So yeah.
Okay.
I think we've gotten into. I think this is an important issue. I think we need to, take a step back and figure out what the best approach is going to be. Like I said, I think it's important to probably involve, the appropriate public safety committee from council, the police department, and to work jointly with them to approach Kroger management on this particular issue. Again, I think there's going to be a willingness on everybody's part to do this. This is a significant investment in the property. And I can tell you, you might recall when we had our initial discussions about this project several months ago, it kind of died in the water, at the end of the year last year. And we were really concerned, that we were going to be able to pull this back together. And I do have to give a lot of credit, to the property owner for helping us pull this project back together and kind of breathe some new life into it. I think there's an opportunity to do all the things we're talking about here. I think we just need to figure out, okay, there's this piece, and then the next piece, we need to figure out how to pursue that next piece, which is the customer experience, the customer safety, all of those issues that we're talking about.
And Paul, may I ask just one more thing regarding that complex there? What is the status with the BMV? I recognize some part of the BMV is no longer there anymore, so they've given that business to Mount Healthy. I'm not understanding what that's about.
Yeah,
we
did have some discussions with the shopping center owner about it. They were quite honestly caught off guard because they had a multi-year extension on the table for the BMV, and we're actually under the impression that that was going to be signed. I don't know if this is a funding issue with the BMV, if they decided to consolidate locations, and because the other location on Hamilton Avenue actually has the driver testing facility, if that's why they consolidated there. So we're still trying to kind of run that down and find out, was this a funding issue? Were they, without knowing all the ins and outs of how the BMV is funded, we know that there's issues with the state. Were they getting cut in funding? Were they having issues? Because up until last week, you might recall, they've reopened and we had lines around the block.
Yes.
And the shopping center owner, as I said, did have a lease extension on the table that they thought was going to be signed. So they were just as surprised as anybody when we saw the signs go up saying that they had consolidated locations. But I have a feeling that's why. I think we just want to try to find out from them, is this a permanent move? Is this a temporary move? Is this, something related to funding? We want to try to get some answers from them. And quite honestly, I think I'm going to talk to some of our folks with our state rep and some other folks and try to find out, work our way back down rather than work our way from the bottom up. I think we're going to go from the top down and see what we can find out about that.
Okay, thank you.
You're saying that one of them is reopened because my wife is trying to get licenses since February and they closed for COVID. And we had gone up there and the computers were down and they couldn't issue her a handicap plate. So then COVID came and they closed down and we've never gotten back. So we're running on expired plates. But
They have actually moved the location from Forest Park Square. They consolidated into their facility on Hamilton Avenue, which is, I think, as Trevina pointed out, I believe that is Mount Healthy. So they are down in that area. They've consolidated everything into that office location.
okay. All right. Under discussion, I guess I had one more thing for those. There were 3 people not present last month.
I think we had a motion on the table. I don't know if we
you're
ever
right.
voted.
Yeah, thank you for reminding me, Paul. Okay, I think we had enough discussion about the Kroger situation. We'll take a vote on the approval of the motion to accept the director's suggestion that we advance $10,000 to assist Kroger with or Phillips Edison with their development over there. So we will have a vote at this time. All in favor indicate by saying aye, please.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, I've got at least 3 plus me is 4. That's, is anybody a no? Okay, so I guess it's unanimous. I know it's at least 4-0.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Under discussion, several members weren't here the last time, 3 of them. And I wanted to remind you that we're probably going to postpone the breakfast until next year. But I put a call in to, oh my gosh, Channel 5, he's from Pittsburgh. Curtis, I'm
Fuller?
going blank.
Curtis Fuller.
Yeah, Fuller. I put a call into him, but then he's been very busy working several shifts because of the problems we had down on Vine Street and all that. But he has not returned my call. But I'm going to suggest to him that we're probably having our breakfast in January, February, March timeframe, but we may have it in November, just in case something comes up, Paul, that we want to do it. But at least get an okay from him that he would attend regardless of when it is. And
yeah, I think we're definitely looking sometime after the first of the year there. And we talked about whether or not at the last meeting, whether we wanted to actually present awards this year and then, basically not have a breakfast, but present the awards at a council meeting or something. And everybody concluded, let's just go ahead and move the breakfast back into that first quarter, whether it's January, February, or March. We may want to look at March. If you remember, we used to do it in January, and we had a couple of years where we had snow and ice storms.
yeah,
And we may not want to get involved in that again.
yeah.
So I think, maybe sometime end of February, early March, but I would suggest we go ahead and push it back. It's next to impossible to plan anything right now. It's why you're seeing a lot of events are being pushed back because, technically we can't do public gatherings yet anyway. And it's very challenging to try to pull something like this together. And I would, we've always talked, we want the focus to be on the award winners at those business recognition breakfasts. I just have a feeling if we try to put something together here, they're not going to get their just dues. So I would suggest that we push this back and we hold the event in the first quarter of 2021.
Okay.
I'm in agreement with that. I also wonder do you think that it would be appropriate or possible, or do you think it sounds crazy to offer an additional like Forest Park Strong Community Award for an organization that kind of really stood out, that kind of stepped up, helped, or something like that during this pandemic? That's really an anomaly.
I think it's a great idea. I think the question is, do you want to do it for the business recognition event, or would you want to do it for the volunteer recognition event? Which one of those two you think is the better fit? I don't have a preference. I just was wondering if you think, like, quite honestly, they're both pretty well attended. I think we could do it at either one, but I do like that idea. It might be something you want to share with Don too. But I don't have a problem with doing it at the business recognition breakfast. It's whether you want to do it for that or you want to do it at the volunteer breakfast. I could see that being a nice extension of the volunteer breakfast, not only for this year because of everything that's going on, but just in general. I don't know if we've ever done anything for like community organizations or community groups, or it might be a nice way to pull that in. And go ahead.
I think that's great. I mean, I was really specifically talking about a business. There are some businesses that have been, really helpful, to other organizations that they may not necessarily get the recognition for, something else, but, the things that they've done, like shooters is what I'm thinking with, with all these bags they've been given. I mean, and their time and coming to our meeting. I mean, that's really offering a lot of community support during it. So that's what I was kind of thinking.
No, I think that's a great idea, Chelsea. I can tell you one of the things that I think we're going to do. That we do our business of the month. We usually do our business of the month awards. We haven't been doing those because of the entire health crisis. One of the things I was going to do, we'll probably have 3 or 4 of those awards to give at one time. Shooters is one of the people, but I was thinking of looking at, the businesses, and if you have any other suggestions, I was thinking of doing businesses that did exactly what you're talking about here. And when we get back in session with council, we actually recognize like a group of 3 or 4 businesses, our businesses of the month for April, May, and June. Kind of 3 or 4 companies that helped us out during this crisis. So, but I think in terms of even a larger award, I think that's fine. I think we can incorporate that into the business recognition breakfast very easily.
I'm glad Chelsea clarified, because I picked up on the fact that she initially was talking about businesses that have stepped up. The employee volunteer recognition dinner generally honors those volunteers to the city through our various community organizations, and as well as honoring our employees and the contributions that they make. So you're looking at different things. I also think there's some churches that have stepped up and done things during this pandemic, and they might be recognized more at something like the employee volunteer dinner.
Gotcha.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I'm glad you brought that up, Councilwoman Herbie, because I was going to ask, is there something that I was unaware of? The volunteers has always been a dinner in the evening. Do we have a volunteer breakfast, Paul, that I'm unaware of?
Yeah, I misspoke. It is a dinner.
It's a dinner. It's not a breakfast.
Yeah, and that's been for years, for 20 years at least that I'm aware of. So, okay. I guess we could think about that as to whether we want to do it with a volunteer or a business. I guess if someone, a couple of you who have interjected that, Trevina and Chelsea, if you have some ideas that you want to put on an email and send to me about who you were thinking about, like a church, or the nurses from Mercy, even though they're in Fairfield, they service our community quite heavily. But if you had some suggestions on who you might think would be good for volunteering, for recognizing for their volunteering as a business goes, we can discuss that, and I can discuss it with either Paul and or Andy Lewandowski, who does the recognition for the volunteers. Everybody still with me?
Yeah, Chelsea
Yeah.
and Chelsea and I will get together and we'll have a conversation and just come up with some ideas, come up with a nice little list, and we can just take it from there.
Okay. Just as a point of discussion, I just got in the mail a request for return response as to whether I was going to work the polls again. The election is November 2nd, and I guess they plan on being open for going to the polls in November. I mean, that's 4 months away. But I just thought I'd bring it up since I just got it and responded that I was going to work the polls again. And they need poll workers if anyone's interested in doing that. That's all I have under discussion. If there's anything else, bring it up, please. Nothing else?
Just for the good of the order, I just want to mention that Paul Booth Jr. is going to be cooperating with the rabbi of the temple that I go to do a civic engagement discussion on racism in America next Tuesday night. So I happened to see that and I said, I have to zoom in and see my colleague from the city here.
Okay.
Oh. Next Tuesday? It's on Zoom?
Yeah.
Is that in a public notice anywhere that has a link that you could?
No, because they don't. You have to have a meeting. It's just like our Zoom. You have to have a meeting and an ID so that people don't Zoom bomb these things.
I got you.
But yeah, he's. It came out in our notice today from the temple that he was going to be with Rabbi Cameron and doing this.
Okay, cool. All right, is there anything else? There being nothing else, we moved along fairly well tonight. We're a little over an hour, so we can adjourn the meeting. And unless, Paul, you notify us of the intent of meeting at the council chambers next month, Zoom meeting.
Yes, we'll let everybody know if there's any change on this. But we are planning to meet next month.
What I have to say isn't anything formal, but I will say we need a bakery in Forest Park. We need a cupcake in Forest Park. So let's try to find one, Paul.
Both Kroger's and Myers have fresh.
Oh no! I mean a real cupcake.
A real bakery.
I understand.
You know what, Trevina, you ought to start that. You've mentioned that a couple times. In other words, Chelsea, get us a woman's minority business.
Don't tempt us. Do not tempt us. We may.
And there's plenty of rental places in.
Well, let me ask this: Isn't Kid Coffee going to have little pastries and whatnot there?
The Kid Coffee operation.
It's only processing?
It's processing.
Yeah, this is roasting and distribution.
Yeah.
That's it. Okay.
Well, we're working with them. I can tell you we've got a good working relationship with them. And we are talking to them about potentially trying to bring a location here as well.
Well, hold that conversation.
So yes,
I'm just
yes, I would love to have them here. and we have talked to bakeries in the past. I will be honest with you. I think if we're able to do the library project, I think that development, I mean, that library project's probably going to be in excess of $10 million. If we're able to do that project and we're able to put together some of these other elements we're talking about, I think this gives us something then that we can go to the shopping centers on Northland and some of the retail space and try to draw in some of these nicer elements, the things that'll complement Eddie's operation, because I think it gives us an opportunity then to sell that Northland area because we'll have all this investment coming in. So,
You know, I think one of the most interesting ideas that was floating around for a time was a kind of marketplace in the old Kroger before it got filled up. The idea that there would be like a butcher inside and like they rent space and there'd be like a Finley market. There'd be a butcher inside, a baker and those kinds of things. But I thought that would have been a great idea.
right. And I think it gives us an opportunity, you know, to try to bring in those types of elements. Once we get, you have that kind of investment in the corridor, it's going to help us attract those types of tenants. It gives us something to sell.
Well, I feel like Eddie is the franchise guy. That might be something he might want to work on for us.
To be able to assist with that.
Okay, anything else? Anything else going once? Going twice? All right. Talk to everybody next month, either through Zoom or at the council chamber.